Hello everyone watching this video right now. I know why you're watching this video. It's because you want to play the Open Net Battle game. This is the open source battle network project written in C++. You've heard about it, you've seen the videos, you want to play PvP online with your friends, you want to make a custom net navi, you want to fork the engine and make your own closed single player experience. Whatever your reason may be, you all have one thing in common. You can't get game to work. And why can't you get game to work? And that's very simple. The game don't work because the build instructions that I have had hosted on YouTube forever are out of date. They simply don't help you get game to work. So this tutorial is going to help you get game from not work to work as simply as possible. And it's going to do step by step. I'm going to show you every little thing you need to do to get the engine set up. So let's get started. The very first thing you want to do is come over here to my URL. That is github.com/themaverickprogrammer/opennetbattle/tree/master. You can probably get rid of that actually, just up to OpenNetBattle. And if you go there, you're going to see the project landing page. My handle is themaverickprogrammer. You see my handsome face there. So if you've gone there, you're in the right spot. And if you're a Mega Man X fan, you know where the name Maverick comes from. So this tab right here is what's called a branch of our repo. There's different branches, and a repo is just a place where all your code is hosted, and a branch is different versions of the same code, sometimes in the future, sometimes in the past, sometimes different features altogether. The idea is that these branches help us programmers work on different things in isolation without muddying the code, so that way when features are complete and bugs are stamped out, we can what's called merge them to one branch, and that eventually becomes our release. So we have all these branches for a reason. So we're going to click on master, we're going to go to development, and this is the code you want. You want development. Development has the latest and greatest features, but it could also contain bugs. So for the most part, I try to keep the development branch as stable as possible. So if you're on the development branch, you will always have the latest stuff. Eventually I will merge to master, but that time has not happened yet in the last year that has come and gone. So from here, you're going to go to this green code button. You're going to click on that, go to HTTPS, and you're going to select this entire line, Control-C that. I'm going to clone this. Now, if you don't know what a clone is or a git is, you probably need to go, first of all, create a GitHub account if you haven't, you want to. But you don't have to. And then you need to get a command line tool called git. GitHub is not git. GitHub is kind of like a online public forum for everybody who's got a project. They can host their projects. They have a social media account where they can put their avatar up there, and everything that they've ever made is hosted behind their page. Git is a command line tool that does all the things I was telling you about with branches. It was invented by Linus, the inventor of Linux, and it's completely changed the way we do programming. So GitHub is not Git. Keep that in mind. Git is the command line tool that we use. GitHub is just where I host my stuff, and it makes it very convenient to do so. So if you haven't, you need to go over here to Git, that is git-scm.com, and click download. And you're going to click download for the platform of your choice here. So of course I do Windows, and it's going to give me the installer. So you're just going to follow the installer, select all the basic default settings, and then you should be good to go. So we're going to close that, and we're going to hop back over here for a second. Now, what I do on my own computer, I have a code folder in my documents. I call it code, and then I right click and go to advanced properties, and I give it a new icon, and I like the puzzle/Tetris icon because I feel like that is an apt visual description for what code is these days. So I go ahead and make that very clear what that is for myself. And then I pin that to my quick access bar, so I always have an access to my code in my computer. So we have, as you can see, completely empty, and that's why I want to do this with you. We're going to do this from scratch. So I'm going to right click with git installed, git bash here, and that opens up this this console window. Now notice it's different from a command line window. It's not the Windows command line, it's a bash window. So this is what git comes with, and it's very convenient. I use it all the time. So with it installed, I can now right click and paste, and we see the URL to the Open Net Battle project. So I'm going to come over here, git, that's git clone space, and it's going to clone into the folder that I opened this window from. And that is going to take us a hot minute. The project is very, very big. Now, I admit a lot of it's bloat. I had written the engine to be entirely C++ at one point. Now we've added scripting. There's a lot of like resource files in there that come with the engine to make a lot of the common utilities and attacks and enemies and things. But I will be shaving that down here because we are now moving to a scripting environment. The engine is still always going to be written in C++. C++ has speed. It allows us to compile on multiple different forms of architecture. It's a long-standing language. It's a great, excellent language, albeit very difficult to learn and master. So we're adding Lua on top of that for people who don't know how to code C++ or aren't comfortable with it. And there's actually been a lot of ground made with the server side in Lua scripting with the engine. And recently, a lot of progress has been made making custom netnavies and mobs and attacks in Lua too. So in the future, you should see a lot of the custom content can be scripted with Lua, and you won't have to touch the engine anymore. That's the dream goal. And if you're going to touch the engine, it's probably because you want a closed source single player game for yourself, and then you would have to write everything, all your areas and your implementations and your enemies and your characters, your storyline in C++. I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where Lua is able to do everything. I don't expect this engine to be something like Love 2D, where you're able to completely make a full-fledged game via Lua only, but it is a net battle engine. So scripting will make that easier, but it's not going to be to the point where you can make full-fledged titles with just scripting alone. You'll be able to do a lot with the server and the online experience with scripting. In fact, you can have quests and storylines on the server side. But as far as this engine, this client that we're copying now, it's going to be mostly C++. So once it finishes cloning, I'm going to forward this video. Then we're going to open up a program called cmake, and I will see you there. All right, the code is now complete. We can explore all the contents here. It is a big project. Don't get too lost. Most of this isn't too important. Notice, though, there's a solution file here. This is because we want the development branch. This is the old branch. If you see the solution file in the root directory, you're not ready yet. There's what I mean. Type get status. First, you need to navigate into the directory. So if we type ls, that's the way we can list contents. So we're going to cd into open net battle. I'm going to clear my screen here, ls again, and you can see this blue text on the right-hand side of the file path is the words master. This means that we're in the master branch, which is version 1.0, very outdated. And one of the reasons why downloading the project is still so slow because of all the Visual Studio Solution project files. So what we need to do is we need to check out development. What we hope to see are these words that we switch to a new branch development, and the branch development has set up to track remote branch development from origin. What does that mean? Well, what that means is the remote branch is, a remote means something far away from you. Typically you say the words local or client, and then remote means something far away. And that happens to be that our faraway server, where our code is hosted, is on the development branch. And the name of that server is an origin. Well, what is that? Okay, well, if we take get remote -v, you can see we have this nickname origin actually refers to that https github.com/themavicprogrammer opennetbattle.get URL that we got from our code button over here. So this is an alias. So it's basically telling us that we are now set up to track the server where all our code is hosted from the development branch from that URL. So we are in business. As long as you can see the blue text here change to development, everything is working great. Now that we're in the development branch, you can explore the content if you wish. Battle Network is where all the source code is. And it's a lot of source code. Most of it is implementations, like, for instance, enemies and bosses and common attacks that we've seen throughout the series. But a good chunk of it is also the engine itself. A lot of this will be ported to Lua, which will trim the fat off of this entire code base and make it much, much smaller. But if you like to see how things work, like implementations or the common core engine stuff, feel free to explore these files. But I will warn you, it's C++ heavy. I'm hoping if you're watching this video, it's because you know some C++ and you're looking to contribute. But if you're just here to build the engine, let's continue on. So now that we have the code, we need to build this code. Well, what I use is a thing called cmake. Cmake is a project building tool. Now, why do we have to build a project? Well, that's because every computer is different. Windows is different from Unix, Unix is different from Mac, and there's different flavors of Unix. And on top of that, there's your hardware. The architecture of the hardware could be x64 or 32-bit or ARM architecture for phones. So there's so many different recipes to compile code on an environment. We have to have a more sane approach. So I use cmake, which basically reads your target device's settings and then helps generate a project file for your operating system and architecture that then you can just press build and it builds for you. So it does all the heavy lifting. But how do we do that? Okay. Well, first we need a thing called cmake. I have it installed already on my computer. I'm using cmake 3.19.6, and some users have reported having some issues building the project with cmake 3.20. I recommend sticking to 3.19.6 unless you can fix the newer issues. So if that's a challenge you look forward to, have at it. So where do you get cmake 3.19.6? Well, we go to cmake.org. We go to our developer button, our download button, and their latest release is 3.21. Like I said, the newer versions might be a little iffy. I'm on 3.19. So what do we do? Well, let's just keep scrolling. And we'll scroll some more. Older releases. cmake.org.files. So this is an old school file browsing list. We're going to look for the version 3.19. And then from here, you need to download your operating system and your architecture. 8664 is most modern architecture. If you're on a phone, you're probably ARM x86-64. If you're on Windows, you're probably looking for Windows 64, Linux x86-64. If for whatever reason you're on a 32-bit operating system or 32-bit hardware, you're probably going to want to have something more like Win32 x86. Not the Win x64, but you have to know what you're looking for here, and it might require a little bit of trial and error. But again, if you're on a modern computer, 64-bit architecture, so you might see 64 or x86-64, and that's what I would stick to. So let's just stick to the basics here. Let's look for an installer that we can use. Windows x64 MSI. It's a Microsoft installer for 3.19.0. That ought to be good enough for me. So I'm going to hit save. And we're going to download. Now, I've already installed this. So you just need to go through the wizard yourself. After you have it installed, you should be able to see a screen like this. cmake 3.19.6. We're almost there. There is something that we need to do. We're almost there. Before we can actually run the cmake program to build our project files, we need some project dependencies that do not come with the code. That's because they're downloaded as third-party modules. C++ has a package manager now, and one of the up-and-coming package managers is VC Package, which is what I use. VC Package is a C++ dependency manager from Microsoft for all platforms, build systems, and yada, yada, yada. You know the rest. So how do we get it? Let's go to Get Started. And unfortunately, for those of you who are not tech savvy, yes, it's a little bit more typing. This is very common for us programmers. You're always using tools and command line to get the tools, and then you write scripts to make all the command line stuff shorter. But this is how you do the nitty-gritty stuff that programmers do on a daily basis. So if you're a programmer, you probably are comfortable with running these commands and reading these steps and instructions. If you're not, this might feel a little uncomfortable. So let's go through it together. First of all, I'm going to install VC Package. So what I've done is I've got a little folder for tutorial here on one of my external hard drives. And I'm going to open up the git bash that we installed earlier with this tutorial. And I'm simply going to follow the instructions. Clone the VC Package repo. I'm going to copy that here. I'm not even going to use my keyboard because I'm a pro. And right-click and paste. So notice this is a lot faster than the OpenNet Battle project. It's a very lean repository. So after we've cloned it, we need to come up here to the top of our folder, and what you need to do is you need to click on this path and then type in cmd. It's a shortcut. That creates a new terminal already put into that directory. So we're going to run, according to the instructions, we're going to run vc pkg bootstrap vc package.bat. So we want bootstrap vc package.bat. All right, so it seems to just download the exe for us, which is great. And then we need to install packages with it. So this is pretty simple. vc, while we're inside this folder, vc package install. And we're going to need a couple of things. What do we need? Let us open the project file. Because I don't remember off the top of my head. I know we're going to need Poco, which is what I use for networking. Threads, which actually is already part of the operating system, so we don't need that. Lua, we're going to need that. And this is commented out, so we don't need to worry about Sol2 right now. Install. Well, what do we need to install? Poco and Lua. Everything else is included with the project, and this is commented out, so we don't have to worry about it. vc pkg install Poco, and then we need to supply the tuple. We need to tell VC package if it's 32-bit architecture or 64-bit architecture. It's a little bit of a quirk since we're all using 64 these days, but I really like VC package, so I'll give it a pass. x64 Windows. And it's going to tell us that there's a computing installation plan, and it's going to try to repair and download and build for us. That's the whole beauty of having this tool, that it does all the hard work of managing the C++ dependencies and compiling them as shared libraries that we can include in our projects. It makes C++ development so much easier. It really brings us out of the dark ages of C++ and into the more modern forefront alongside with things like Node Package Manager. So we're just going to wait this one out. I'm going to edit the video when it's done. All right, so it looks like it completed. Now we still need to install Lua, so let's go ahead and install Lua. All right, so we have Lua installed now with VC package. Now, this might seem very cumbersome for those of you who are not programmers. You might be used to things like Unity, GameMaker, Godot, something that has a package manager built in that you can just go and click and install modules. Well, this is what kind of heavy lifting all of your favorite GameMaker tools are doing for you. And they also have the advantage of being a closed source or a closed environment, I should say. For instance, Unreal Engine, the only thing that's going to work with Unreal Engine plugins is Unreal Engine. So it makes it a lot easier to maintain and update those plugins so they always work. But when we're dealing with low-level programming like with C++, you have to do all of the heavy lifting yourself. But VC Package is helping us a lot. So now, bear with me. We finally installed the packages we need. Now we can get to the good stuff, actually building the project. So we need to tell cmake where the source code is. So if I go over here to my documents, my code, open NetBattle, here's my source code. Right? Select, go to browse the build file, and I want it in the same place. So documents, code, open NetBattle. I'm going to create a new file called build, and that's where I want all my stuff to go, and I'm going to select that folder. So yours should look kind of similar. Now, we need to add something to cmake to let it know about all those packages we installed in the VC package. So we need to add an entry, and here we need to add cmake toolchain file. I'm going to let you type that out. cmake underscore toolchain underscore file. It is a file path type, so be sure to select file path from the drop down if you haven't. And the value, come over here to the ellipses button, click on that, and we're going to go find it. So I have VC package installed under my external hard drive, tutorial VC package. And I need to go down now to the scripts folder, build systems, and go to VC package cmake. This script tells cmake about VC package so you can find all the dependencies you need. Hit configure. Now you should have Visual Studio 16 installed as well, or the latest Visual Studio. If you don't have Visual Studio, you need to go download it. I assume you're watching this video because you have it. If you don't, you need to come over here. All right, so it is free. You can get the Community Edition for free. There's absolutely nothing stopping you. So be sure to download that and any C++ packages. that you might need. Just look for the keyword C++, make sure there's a check mark next to it, and you should be fine. So once you have that installed and you run cmake again, you should have this option, right? Click on that. Then you need to tell it to be x64 because you're on a modern machine. I assume if you're doing something like Android or ARM or you're on a 32-bit operating system for some reason, check those and then just hit finish. And it's going to start configuring the project. Found Lua, that's great. It's installing some of the submodules. So there's extra projects here. Some of these are mine that I've made, some of these are not, that the OpenNet Battle Engine uses internally. Swoosh is the screen transition library, and it also has built-in, I've already written some shaders that are common. SFML, I have a custom fork of SFML that has ES2 support for Android, so we're using that build so I can put it on Android. The Web API. There was a time when I wanted to have a Web API, so you had to go and create an account to play. That time is coming to an end, but you still need to do it for now. So you still need the Web API sub-project. And it looks like everything else was fine. This red is just a deprecation for SFML. It's telling us about libvorbis, which is used to play audio in SFML, is deprecated, but this is not a problem. Notice it just says this is a warning. So we were able to get through everything and configuration was done. I hit it one more time just to make sure there's no more surprises. And it makes all the red up here go away. We're good. Hit generate. Everything was good at generation. Now here it comes. Moment of truth. Open the project. All right. We're going to give it a second to load up everything it needs. And the first thing you want to do, right-click on Battle Network. Set as Startup Project. This tells the play button and the build solution command to build the project here. Web API client is a sub-project that the Battle Network project needs, but we don't need it to build that. We need it to build the Battle Network project. All right. So we're going to start out on debug because you're probably building to work on the feature or to check out the code base. Go to project real quick and I'll show you something else. Down in C++, multiprocessor compilation. This is not set as default in the cmake scripts. Go to yes for debug and make sure debug is selected. And if you go to release, make sure it's set for release as well. Hold on, let me apply first. If you're doing release, I always go ahead and do it for release as well when I create the project, just so I don't have to forget. All right, here we go. All we got to do now is hit build. Now this is going to take some time. It is a big project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the shot here, and whenever it's done building, we'll press the play button to see our results. All right, we are back, and it looks like the project compiled successfully. We can see here at the very bottom, it tells me the build result. Nothing failed, so that we can only assume that the game has been built. We can verify real quick by going to our project file, our build directory that we had created. You're going to see a folder called debug or release, depending on what you've compiled recently for it. I only compiled for debug, so we're only going to see debug. So I'm going to click on that, and then look, you see the executable file, the common resources file, a config file that you need to use to set up the connection endpoint for the web server, and any controller key bindings. But there's also an in-game editor as well to set up your configurations for your controller. And there's a bunch of other dependencies in here. A lot of this is actually just intermediate files that do not show up for release and doesn't need to be packaged with release. And I curate that whenever I do put out builds. So with that said, we have a game. Let's run it. All right. So one of the things I noticed real quick is that the it wasn't letting me run around. The key bindings seem to be messed up in this branch, so that's really easy. Let's take a look at this config file. We were going to do that anyway. These are the key bindings, and it seems that for whatever reason it's not working for me. So I'm going to go ahead and just change these up here a little bit, so that way I have something that I can use. So this is going to force it to throw an error, and I could probably have stopped at this point, and then it's going to default to default configurations. So I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to run it from here. So one of the things you can do with this game is actually specify which port you're on for PvP. You want that. If you're playing against somebody online and you want to have a PvP match, you need to specify a port by doing -P. So I like to be on port 3000. That's just me. Allow access because it's a new application requesting access to the internet. There we go. And I'm able to use things again. So yeah, having a bad config file for your keyboard inputs will default to some common controls. For me, it is Z for run, X for run, but it's also my emoji window. Z for interact, which might also be our talk button. And it is. And this prog, as you can see, allows us to specify our destination. So I'm going to go to cyberworld 112.168.1.90. 0.3066, and it's online, so the warp pad came online, and it's central area. Take a look. The S key, I think is S key. Yeah, S key is to return to your home page. And it seems I don't have a binding for the map, which is what I was going to show you. So let's go take care of that real quick. Let's go to the config screen. So we're going to press Z. I'm going to turn the music down a little bit. It's a little loud for me. I have my audio turned up, and this is brand new. And the audio has been normalized, which surprisingly made it extremely loud. So you can change the settings here. My keyboard, and you can see that there's no key binding, so we're going to go ahead and change that up. Shoot, I like my Z key to be shoot. Use chip, special ability, the custom menu. And we're gonna touch that. That's for debugging purposes. And we also have a gamepad. So I can plug in my gamepad real quick. All right, so again, we just press Z to highlight the key we want to use, and then I'm going to press my gamepad buttons or joysticks. So I actually want to change this custom menu back to another button. There we go. All right, I'm happy with that. First, I want to save these settings so we have them saved to the ini file. And let me also make sure the ini file is closed. We don't want to accidentally erase it by having it open. All right, so it's closed now. Overwrite. So anyway, that's how you build the project. If there's any issues here, feel free to comment in the YouTube video. Now you can start working on the port. You can start getting involved with the community online. They're a little hard to find, but I'm sure you can find them if you go to the Twitter. Speaking of, let's actually go to that Twitter page. So down here, there's a link to the project on Twitter, and here we are. So there's an active community here. You can talk, you can comment, make comments on the videos, and reach out and ask people on the comments about how to set it up. And then there's also me, of course. I might be able to answer. I don't always get on here every single day, but when I do, I do try to help out. So maybe I can help you get the project up and going, and maybe you can find somebody who has a link to the community online, and you can join them and ask questions and play matches with PvP, just like in this video. So that's it, guys. I think that answered everything on how to set up the project, at least to get you started, and I will see you later.